This entire facility was in panic after a nuclear reactor suddenly powered down. They didn't know how, and they didn't know why, but the whole thing had shut down. The staff rushed to engage the emergency protocols, hoping against hope that it wasn't too late. Was it a foreign attack, or was it just a mechanical failure? No one could figure it out. That is, until they took a look inside the reactor's cooling system.
In a stunning, silent blow, the animal kingdom has just struck a crippling blow to one of the largest nuclear power plants.
Had an emergency shutdown of the reactor because jellyfish got into the channel that allows the third circuit to pump water into the North Sea.
Everything inside was chock full of jellyfish, millions and millions of them. Everyone had just one question on their mind. How was this even possible? The answer is far stranger than anything you can imagine. The jellyfish problem. The world is facing a huge problem. Our nuclear power plants, which we are relying more and more on for energy production with each passing year, are actually under attack. The enemy is not a foreign agency trying to sabotage our infrastructure or anything like that. That's because the enemy isn't even human, it's jellyfish. These creatures seem to have taken it upon themselves to incapacitate any nuclear power plant they can find. And it's not just a problem specific to a certain region or a freak accident that happened once and never repeated again. Jellyfish have been the main culprit behind several nuclear plants around the globe going out for days on end. There have been cases in nearly every part of the world. Case in point, the shutdown of one of the reactors at Warai nuclear plant in Japan in 2011. Tons of jellyfish got into the cooling system and caused the plant to shut down. And worse still, the country was already struggling with managing its electrical infrastructure due to a recent tsunami and earthquake. The same year, the Orat Rabin power plant in Hadera, Israel, faced a similar situation. Only this time, the whole plant went out of commission for a while. And then there was the Turkey Point nuclear plant incident, where the swarm of jellyfish literally ripped through the screen protecting the water intake and bent it by 2 feet before clogging up the whole system. And trust me when I tell you these were the lucky ones, because some plants get attacked by jellyfish on a regular basis. The St. Lucie nuclear plant in Florida had to be tripped not once, not twice, but 5 times because the jellyfish kept coming back as soon as they cleared up the mess and turned the reactors back on. Now you may ask, how is it possible for just some jellyfish to cause entire plants to go into complete shutdowns? To find out the answer, we will need to first talk about how these power plants operate. A strange design flaw. While nuclear reactor designs around the world are top secret, their basic principle of operation tends to be the same. It's pretty simple to understand. The nuclear core, which is the main component, generates heat. This boils water, which is run through a turbine. This creates electricity as the turbine turns through the pressure of the steam. But here is the thing. Where should that steam go? They cannot just let it out as it is. So instead, these plants take in some cold water from an intake. The steam is routed so it gets cooled down by the cold water and returns to a liquid form. From there, it can be reused. And here is where the problem arises, because the cold water needed to turn the steam back to liquid form needs to be taken from somewhere. This is why most nuclear plants are built near water bodies. They draw in the water from the ocean or the lake they are built next to in order to achieve their optimal functionality. Usually there are screens placed on the intake point to prevent any marine life from getting in. But jellyfish? They don't follow that rule. They often get sucked in by the intake, eventually causing the screens to break. After that, a whole swarm of jellyfish gets caught up in the pressure of water going into the intake with no barrier in between to stop them. The results are quite catastrophic. The jellyfish clog up the whole cooling system, and due to their unique consistency, they form a pretty strong seal. No water can get through. And without the cold water going in, there is no place for the steam to go. This phenomenon can cause overheating and, in the worst-case scenario, an explosion. Usually, though, the operators in charge shut things off before any real emergency can develop. But even then, the reactor, or the entire plant, has to be shut off until the jellyfish are cleared out of the system. While the first method is to reverse the flow of the water in the system so the jellyfish get pushed back out the intake, that method doesn't always work. In those scenarios, an extensive cleaning operation is conducted. Divers are sent down to clear up the obstructions by hand. Meanwhile, workers labor away at removing the jellyfish from inside the system where divers cannot reach. It's certainly not a fun task. These jellyfish are so fragile that they can easily break off during removal, and their sheer numbers mean it takes hours, perhaps days, to clear the whole system. Now you may think all of this isn't possible, and for the doubters out there, they actually caught the whole thing on camera. They started filming. When the jellyfish showed up in droves at the shorelines near Egypt, the experts knew they would pose a risk for the Hadera plant. The jellyfish had come in a swarm. There were thousands of them near the shore, as if an army had come for battle. The experts noticed something interesting, however. These jellyfish were moving rapidly, as if in a hurry to hunt. It was an odd behavior. Could they be adapting to something? No one was sure. It didn't take long for the experts to figure it out, though. After carefully studying the intruders, they realized what was going on. This swarm of jellyfish was migrating. This specific species migrates every year. Only this time, they were drifting far too close to the shore than usual. The experts wanted to study the swarm some more. They were noticing odd behavior like rapid movements and signs of adaptations. But they didn't have much time to examine them since a catastrophe was about to unfold. Soon after they emerged in a massive swarm on the beaches, the nearby plant's water intake was clogged by thousands of jellyfish. The whole plant had to be shut down, and when the reverse water flow failed to push out the blockage, the workers had to go in manually. There were so many of them that the workers were filling up trucks with jellyfish, and due to the fact that jellyfish can be extremely venomous, they had to be extra careful, no contact allowed. The work became doubly difficult since they couldn't use their hands. During all this, the plant was producing zero power, and the nearby areas that relied on it for electricity were out of juice until the plant could be up and running again. After lengthy and tiring work, the workers were eventually able to get the last of the intruders out of the pipes and down into the drain. The reactors were turned back on, and the electricity once again flowed through the city's infrastructure. It was a breath of relief for the inhabitants. But there was one thing that was still unclear. Why had so many jellyfish appeared? Even for a migration, their numbers were far too high. And the more important question, why were they thriving the most near the nuclear plant? The answer may shock you. Why jellyfish love nuclear plants. The experts knew that they needed to understand the underlying problem behind the whole issue these nuclear plants were facing. And that underlying problem was that for some unknown reason, the jellyfish were being attracted to the nuclear plants around the globe. There was another strange thing happening. The jellyfish, which were usually in moderate numbers, would suddenly bloom in population, hundreds turning to tens of thousands, even more in a matter of weeks. And this phenomenon was happening closer to the plants too, rather than anywhere else. The experts couldn't figure out what was going on. Why were these things happening? Was it radiation? Well, probably not. The radioactive materials in the reactors are sealed very well. None of it gets into the coolant water. Even if it does, the effect is so minimal that it's barely noticeable. So what was happening? Well, one theory started gaining popularity. According to this theory, while the nuclear power plants were taking in the cold water, they were also dumping out the hot water, and this may be inadvertently creating the perfect breeding environment for the jellyfish. The hot water from the plant could be heating up the ocean water around the plant. And since jellyfish thrive in warmer water, often undergoing a rapid increase in population, the hotter water from the nuclear power plant is indirectly causing the problem plaguing it. In other words, the nuclear plants increase water temperature, which in turn causes the jellyfish to undergo population growth. And then there is the fact that the outlet letting out the hot water would be a perfect lure for the jellyfish. The thermal plume would be irresistible for the creatures, making them flock closer to the plant than they would normally. And once they are close enough to the inlet, they are suddenly sucked in rapidly. Their body mass blocks off the inlet, and with the pressure pulling them in, the jellyfish end up breaking through the screens or other barriers that would have normally worked against other marine animals. The temperature was the real culprit. The plant was artificially manipulating its surroundings during normal operation, which was causing the whole problem in the first place. But that alone couldn't be the cause. The reason I say that is because jellyfish blooms are being witnessed not just around the nuclear plants, but also in other regions of the world. While it is true that the population bloom occurs more commonly near the nuclear plants, there had to be another cause behind it too, because for a phenomenon like this to happen, the jellyfish would have required way more food to sustain that growth. And turned out that we humans handed these jellyfish that opportunity on a platter. The silent takeover. As experts found out in a recent study, the jellyfish bloom being witnessed all around the world is a product of an increase in nutrients in the ocean water, and this increase is made possible by none other than us humans. Our tendency to overfish is what caused the issue, to be exact. Let me explain. No matter where you go in the world, you will find that the oceans are being overfished. And what that does is significantly affect the ecology of the region that has been kept in balance for millennials. Suddenly, important populations of certain species that keep others in check are being caught at a rapid rate, so much so that it is shifting the balance in favor of jellyfish in some regions. For instance, fish that feed on jellyfish have seen a decline in numbers. When there is no hunter, the prey thrives like nothing else. Other fish species that tend to compete with the jellyfish for food have also seen a population decline. All this has resulted in a silent invasion. Due to the uncontested access to food, these marine predators are seeing a sudden burst in population ever so often. Mix that in with the slight increase in the water temperatures in the last few decades due to climate change, and it all becomes a recipe for disaster. Things are getting out of hand, and it isn't just the power plants that are in danger. When you mess up an ecosystem to the point where one species is suddenly dominating the seas, there are consequences. Jellyfish could become an invasive monoculture species, wiping out all the competition. If that happens, the ecology in the region could be annihilated. The complex balance that maintains the health of the oceans would be destroyed. It is not just about a couple of species going extinct in the area. Rather, an imbalance like this will wipe the slate clean. Jellyfish may end up being the only living thing inhabiting those waters. We humans wouldn't be safe either. Remember the overfishing I was talking about? If the jellyfish keep on increasing in population like they are, we may no longer have fish on the menu. The local fisheries will suffer the most, where people rely on fishing as their sole source of income. The yield of edible fish will go down drastically. After all, most places don't consider jellyfish a delicacy. And then there is the problem with power plants. These places are acting like an incubator for jellyfish. They have warmer waters, which not only signals the jellyfish to start multiplying, but also helps increase their food source to sustain the larger population. Think of a nursery that is creating its own worst enemy. These jellyfish multiply in numbers, and while some of them wage war on the plant itself by clogging the water intakes, most of them drift off into the sea to further increase their population. It's a problem that's spreading, and according to some theorists, things are about to get way worse. What comes next? After seeing the footage of jellyfish swarming around the beaches and nuclear plants, several theories have popped up about what could happen next, each one scarier than the next. For instance, one theory states that if these jellyfish remain too close to the nuclear plants for generations, they could start developing mutations because of the radiation. But is that really possible? Well, it is no secret that radiation can potentially cause mutations. Not the superhero kind, though, more like cancerous cells and extra limbs. The same could happen to jellyfish if they come in contact with the nuclear waste or escaping radiation from the core. But here is the thing. That is a big if. You see, these plants are designed by the smartest minds of our time. They are especially made so that the radiation from the radioactive materials, or the reaction happening inside, does not escape the control area. And also, the radioactive stuff from the reactors and the energy creation process isn't dumped into the environment like that. There are strict rules to follow. Everything is monitored closely. And then there is the fact that the water a nuclear plant intakes and outputs into the ocean isn't actually radioactive. Even if it gets some radiation, it is always minimal, too small to be even considered a risk. Keeping all that into account, it is highly unlikely that these jellyfish would ever turn into superpowered mutant versions that would annihilate humanity. You don't have to worry about running from jellyfish in the next few decades instead of robots. That is, if every nuclear plant in the world in every country follows the safety procedures and disposes of the radioactive materials properly. And of course, if there is no freak accident that results in a catastrophic leak of radioactive waves. These are turning a lot of ifs for my comfort, to be honest. So let's move on to the good part, at least the good part of the military. Creative as they are, the military has decided to use the tendency of jellyfish to swarm around nuclear power plants as a source of intel. Military experts have proposed that instead of looking for secret nuclear plants and facilities in enemy territories, all they need to look for are swarms of jellyfish clustered together near a building. This could very well be an effective strategy. So are jellyfish going to act as spies now? Covert agents of nature out on patrol against nuclear reactors? What if they are able to train the jellyfish to go after specific plants? So many questions, but no answers. Time will tell for sure. A lengthy solution. In terms of marine sustainability, the nuclear power plants have their ups and downs because of these jellyfish. And it's not like these shutdowns are cheap. For instance, when the Torness nuclear power station in Scotland had to be shut down due to jellyfish problems in 2011, each day the plant wasn't operational caused the company $1.5 million. That's a lot of money, and there is no greater driving factor for corporations and governments to work hard towards finding a solution than losing money. So in no time, the UK government approved a grant of over $500,000 to research a viable solution. Unfortunately, this isn't a problem that can be solved with just one safeguard. If it were, the protective screens on the water intake of these plants would have done the job. Instead, there is a need for drastic measures. Ideally, we should be able to fix the whole issue by stopping the destruction of the marine ecology. Less and smarter fishing, eliminating pollution, and preventing global warming. But those solutions would take a lot of time. These nuclear power plants need a quick solution now to stop bleeding money with each jellyfish attack. After all, these nuclear plants are powering critical infrastructures like hospitals, transportation, and essential facilities. One proposed solution is that these plants employ a barrier away from the water intake area that prevents marine life from getting anywhere close. They have also proposed stationing salvage vessels nearby that can quickly scoop up the jellyfish before they overwhelm the fencing or find a way through. But these are what's called emergency solutions. The experts have come up with other methods of dealing with a jellyfish bloom before it even has a chance to become a problem. The first line of defense will be source-based controls. The jellyfish in the region would be studied for early signs of a population burst. If those signs are detected, the bloom can be prevented by using chemicals or other such measures. If this doesn't work, then there is Plan B, early warning systems. Think drones, underwater submarines, and sonar systems, constantly monitoring the waters near the plant for a swarm of jellyfish. They will help the facility prepare for an attack and maybe even quell the population burst before it can reach the intake points. They are even creating specialized robots that seek out jellyfish and shred them into pieces automatically to manage the population. These are all viable solutions, no doubt, especially if they are used in conjunction with each other. Experts have also proposed a natural way of dealing with the jellyfish. Simply release their predators in the region. Let nature take care of itself. But history tells us that those kinds of solutions don't always work. More often than not, releasing a non-native species into an environment only spells catastrophe. It's much better to just take steps towards conserving a healthy population of the local jellyfish predators that are being fished to extinction. After all, some are saying all this isn't just an unfortunate side effect of building power plants near the shorelines. Rather, it is a declaration of war from nature, wanting to take back what we humans have laid claim to. The day nature fought back. Jellyfish have become the unexpected avengers of nature, here to punish us for our environmental crimes, and nuclear power plants are the easiest targets right now. And here is the thing. Despite our best efforts, we may not be able to stop the invasion. You see, the world has so many nuclear plants sucking in water from the oceans that it is insane. Like just in China, there are nuclear power plants in Haiyang, Shidao, Changjiang, Diabei, Lingao, Taishan, and Yangjiang. All of these have had trouble with jellyfish. Now scale that up to the entire globe, and you get the picture. It is amazing to think that a creature without a brain can be so much trouble. But here is nature to prove us wrong. But they are not really an invader, are they? We are. It is we humans who have unbalanced their ecosystem, caused unprecedented change, and changed how they live. These jellyfish are just an indicator of a system out of balance, a system that needs to be fixed soon before the changes become irreversible. And keep in mind, this is not a matter that can be taken easily. Our society depends on electricity, and if one of the most sustainable methods for producing electricity becomes so ineffective, countries will hesitate to make the transition to nuclear power plants from the old coal plants. Every clogged-up reactor is a huge blow, and unless this problem is fixed, one way or the other, the electrical infrastructure of the world is changing. Or maybe we will all get eaten up by mutated jellyfish monsters. Who knows? What do you think of this problem that nearly every nuclear reactor facility in the world faces today? Is it okay to let things go on as they are, or should there be a drastic change to fix the issue at hand? And most importantly, are we going in the right direction by focusing only on short-term fixes instead of addressing the underlying problem? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I would love to read them all. And while you are at it, be sure to like the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Until next time, goodbye, and stay curious.